Good evening. It's time for Presspass. My name is Masai. This is what's coming up.
To cut the country's ballooning recurrent expenditure, Kenya sent out a delegation of 85.
More leaders have reportedly joined their colleagues in the trip, raising the number to 90. The House leadership has refuted these claims, accusing the media of misreporting.
That would warrant MPs being mad journalists. Are reporters in Parliament under threat?
Census kwangu naelewa kwamba ni kuhesabu watu baada ya miaka 10.
I'm not sure whether the media has given the focus, a good focus on the upcoming one.
Have we made sense of the census? We ask whether people feel well informed by the media on the exercise. That's in just 5 days. Let's meet our panelists tonight, and right next to me is my colleague, and that is Kennedy Mureithi. He is our senior reporter, political affairs here at NTV, and has been a guest on Presspass previously, and he'll be lending his thoughts and, of course, reflections as someone who focuses a lot on Parliament tonight. Next to him is Dina Ondari. She is the Press Freedom and Ethics Manager at the Media Council of Kenya, but has also been a reporter from Parliament and has been on the receiving end of the parliamentarians' furor after some reports that she has done in the past, and you'll see that. And this was actually almost a year ago, exactly a year ago. She did a House of Bribes, a report on the bribery or the corruption that goes on in House committees. This was in 2018. And yes, Dina Ondari, you're a much sought after person, but not for the good reasons by parliamentarians. But you're safe now, and we're glad to have you with us. And not a stranger to the panel as well is Ledama Olekina. I think the time he was here, he was not Senator of Narok, but was appearing as a sole proprietor in media world, of course, having several radio stations under his name. And that is Sidai being one of them, Sidai FM. And he's also been practicing in media, but this is back in the day before he had as much hair as he has on his head right now. So let's start the conversation with something that is on countdown, or at least should be on countdown, and that is the Census 2019. And we asked around whether people feel well prepared or that they've been made aware of what to expect in the upcoming exercise. This is what they had to say.
Ningeomba watu wa media kama mngeweza kuendelea kuelimisha wananchi tuelewe zaidi hii census maana yake ni nini.
Tunasikia census itafanywa usiku, which is not safe on our side. Hiyo ni kitu ya kwanza. Cha pili, nafikiri huku mashinani, huku penye tuko huku mashinani, watu wa hapa completely, kwanza ukitembea huko chini chini hawaelewi completely census ni nini. Kwa sababu unaenda kuelezea mtu nasikia kutakuwa na census, na census ni kufanya nini?
Wamejaribu kwa kiwango, lakini vizuri pia kama mngeweka kwa lugha ya nyumbani ili mtu aelewe. Kama ni Mkalenjin afundishwe kwa Kikalenjin aelewe vizuri, kama ni Muluya namna hiyo, kama ni Mkikuyu namna hiyo.
We really don't know what it entails completely about all the questions we were supposed to be asked. We don't know what time they be coming. Alafu we are wondering for our safety, why is it at night?
Census inakuja bado sijaelewa itakuwa siku gani, na tujui pia saa ile watakuja kwa sababu media hawajaangazia.
Census kwangu naelewa kwamba ni kuhesabu watu baada ya miaka 10 ili kuweza kusaidia serikali kupangia mipango ya watu.
Sisi tuna hakika na tuna security ya kutosha ya kwamba wenye wanatuhesabu ni watu tunaoelewa ama hatuelewi. Kama media wangekuwa wametupea information ama wangekuwa wamepewa ripoti na serikali, watu brief vizuri tukae kuelewa.
The media is important. You know, so many things that happen in this country happen, but because people are not made aware, or people are not made aware of what it actually entails, then people misunderstand it and it's not successful.
I'm not sure whether the media has given the focus, a good focus on the upcoming one, the census.
And I'd like to thank our correspondents from the North Rift who have been effortlessly giving us the responses from their areas on Matters Media. And I'll start with, first of all, the lady on the panel, Dina Ondari, because you're tasked with monitoring what's going on with the media. And I'm sure you've been keen just to see what kind of coverage in the build-up and even during, because we know how political the census can be, with 209 in our mind still, and even the results of 209 not yet out for one reason or other. But what has been your observation for across the board in terms of coverage in preparation for census?
So far, what we are seeing in the media are stories about what the numbers portend for the political environment,
yes,
especially on the issue of constituencies, the impact it's going to have on resource allocation on counties. And but not much of that has been around because the Kenyans need to be told what the numbers mean for their future, especially when it comes to the issues of development, because census really is an issue of development, because the government does not just, or is not expected to just collect numbers for the sake of collecting numbers. We have the Big Four agenda, and we have projections of government planning to provide free medical care, for example.
Yes.
How are the numbers going? Is that from 2009 to this time? We obviously there is an increase in population.
Yes.
Is it sustainable what the government is planning to do on housing, for example, and healthcare? Does it have enough resources to plan for the increase in population? And these are the issues that Wananchi need to be told, and I wouldn't. Yes, the media has done a bit of work, but they can still do better.
Yeah, and like for instance, I'm looking at one of the reports here by Brian Goge from the Business Daily, and his headline here is Census Report to Reveal Your Household Wealth. Just one of the areas that people would be interested in. But she's mentioned something, and it's very sensitive when it comes to the census, numbers and what the numbers mean. There are many numbers that will be involved in this, but there's that one number that people talk about and translated to tribe. Will we be caught in the trap again of determining, because we're told after 6 months the results will be out, of determining so which tribe had the largest number? Because for many, or at least the narrative that's being driven, that's what's important.
To many politicians, and Ledama, I know will be able to speak on this, is the numbers do matter. And for any particular person, be it a politician, the numbers really do come in handy. I had left the media for some time and
yes,
went to the county to work. And some of the tones that were coming out from the people who were there is that we must plan for the census early. It was one of the counties that was disadvantaged with regards to the numbers that were put forward in the 2009 census that was done. So one of the things that was coming out so much is how do we as leaders from that region marshal people to come and get counted, so that when it comes to resources, remember also the Commission for Revenue Allocation.
Yes.
One of the determinants for giving you revenue is the number of people that you do have. So if you do have enough numbers, or if you have numbers that can marshal, you can even sit at a table and bargain. Senator Ledama will also be able to tell you that one of the questions that you're asked when you go into a negotiation table with regards to politics is how many are you? What are you bringing to the table? So the numbers bit, even if the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics is not going to give us that this is the tribe with the largest number, I do not know.
Yes.
But even if they were not to do that, that is information that cannot be kept inside by someone.
Well, they managed to from the last one. I mean, these are pictures from the last exercise, and to date, the numbers aren't quite clear.
It was contentious because the number of people who had been put as the second largest, or the number of people who believed that they were the second largest, actually had a problem with that. Or somebody in government had a problem with that. And you'll realize that that census, somebody sought to cancel that whole exercise because their tribe had not been given the due respect or the due numbers they expected.
Yeah.
We saw about 3 or 4 months ago, or is it last year, late last year, there's a group of members of parliament from Northeastern who called a press conference and said that if
it's a game of numbers,
you do not give us the right numbers that we do expect, and we know that our numbers have grown, then it's not going to be okay. And he said there was a statement that said, when you guys are doing something, we are seriously in bed. So it's
in the numbers. Yeah,
it's a game of numbers.
Yes, that's very true. And Ledama, as you respond, one of the people there said, we want this broken down in our language. You speak from Sidai FM perspective, the Ma-speaking radio station. Has this been something you've been practicing?
Well, I think it's important. It's important that we recognize every ethnic group. And recently I was in Baringo, and there's a small group of the Masai, a sub-clan of the Masai called the Ilchamus. And they complain on how they've been classified.
Yes.
They've been classified as Njems and Ilchamus. And really, they are just Ilchamus, which is a sub-clan of the Masais. And I think it's important for them to be recognized because they do pay taxes in this country and they have to be fully represented in parliament. Mm-hmm. So the way they are represented now is that they are like a minute. And for us, if you were to ask me what would be important for me in this census is that I would like to know how many cows do we have in terms of the Masais. And then we go scientific. How much food do we need for each of the cows? Yes. So that when we come into a drought session, county government can be enlightened to be able to produce more fodder for the cows so that we can do away with this issue of the drought. Because you see, the problem is that, year in, year out, we experience this cycle of the drought because of the way we've been so bad to the environment. Yes. So I think for me, what will be important, and I hope that number one, they can be able to correct the questions that they're asking or the classification of different ethnic groups that they have in terms of the census, that they can consider the Ilchamus as part of the Masai community. That's number one. Mm-hmm. Number two, they can also bring in other questions like how many cows do you have or goats do you have, domestic animals do you have? Yes. And then what we do with those numbers is not for us to be able to gain political mileage, but for us to be able to figure out how do we better the standard of living of our people. Yes. How do we ensure that if it is growing further, you will realize that when you go to Narrow County at the moment, people are moving away from corn or maize production. People are going now into hay production. And in fact, whatever corn is produced, it is turned into silage to be able to feed the domestic animals. So for me, that census would make much more sense to me in terms of learning how to sustain these economies, but not how to compete in terms of who is giving birth more so that they can be able to, lead the country. Yes. Because you can get all numbers for you to be able to take advantage of the people. There was a fantastic cartoon, I think it in today's paper or yesterday's paper, where they were trying to put up a bridge, and they were just putting down the poor people. It's about time that we move away from that mentality and we think about how do we use these numbers to be able to better the standard of living of people. And
in this piece by Brian Goye, it is indicated that another set of questions will be required to state the number of cows, sheep, goats, camels, donkeys, pigs, chickens, rabbits, or fish they own or rear, amongst other things that they would have, even electronics within your home. But what would you be championing? Because there's a narrative, and again, I'll go back to this. It carries a day, beg your pardon. It carries a day that at the end of the day, we want to know which is a dominant tribe. Is that more driven by politicians, or is it more of what we do in terms of the focus we give as media?
I think we should not appear to look like we are dismissing the political aspects of census because, politics is also about resource allocations. Yes. It's about who gets what, where, how. And so politics is important as far as the issue of census is concerned. But I think the media has a responsibility to give a wholesome picture of the census issue. While you are giving the numbers, which region has the biggest number of people, because it also affects the amount of resource that is being allocated, and then it then gives you the facts in terms of data that you need to interrogate issues of budgeting, for example. If resources are being given to counties then you are able to have a basis upon which you can give this county more money than this one. And of course, not saying that the issue of population, it's not the only parameter, but it's an important one.
Yes.
And I think for me, the work of the media in census does not start and end with the day of the counting, because I think more work needs to be done, because the media needs to remain vigilant to follow through the process, the processing of results, and then even when the results come out, they are able to interpret to the common mwananchi on what the numbers mean, because we have even seen some Kenyans expressing concern because they need to be explained to, even in vernacular language, so that they can understand what this exercise means. Another important aspect of the census that I think the media needs to focus more on is the issue of security, because we have places where insecurity is a daily challenge, and it's really a genuine concern by the residents when they are saying that we are not assured of our security. So as
and
media,
there are those who would want to take advantage of that.
Yeah. So we need to ask ourselves, what is our role in this? Is there something, do we need to highlight this issue of insecurity more so that those concerned can be able to provide security?
Okay. And Ken, from an honest view from the newsroom that you work for, NTV, and also what you've observed, because we watch other people, have we really done it justice in terms of preparation of the Kenyan populace for this exercise?
Mark, to be honest, I too actually do not know what is going to happen in census.
Right.
And I want to be very honest, and as media, I don't think we have done enough. And this cuts across not just where I work, but everywhere else. Remember, one of the questions that you said is the rise of vernacular stations has been so huge in this country that we need people to be given this information in their vernacular languages. Ask Senator Ledama, who says on the beat some radio stations that probably broadcast the same language. Have even the Kenya Bureau of Statistics approached him to say, like, we want to sensitize people on this. Even us as media, remember in 2009, some of the people who are now in the journalism trade, well, actually some of them were even in school.
Yes, that's true.
So there is that training that needs to be done. This is an exercise that is coming just a few days from now. President Uhuru Kenyatta launched it the other day.
Yes.
But the number of people who know what is actually going to happen are not so many. People are just waiting to be counted, and that is what they do know.
Yeah.
And just hearing the concerns that have been brought out as we were starting this show from the different parts of the country, and people are saying the media has not been able to tell us, because they do look at the media and up to the media to actually give them this information. If we do give them this information 2 days prior, then it is not going to be helpful. As Dina has said, it's a continuous thing. There is something that should have been done months and months ago so that we are able to learn. The other day I saw Professor Nilonyangapo, who had gone into Uganda to call on the people from West Pokot who had gone to graze to come back and be counted. You see, also, remember, Senator Ledama is also advancing another course. He wants the Ilchamus, from which Melita Oletenge is one of our reporters comes from, to be recognized as one of the Masai tribes. So it is an interesting thing that if we let the politicians drive the agenda, then we are losing it.
Right.
I think one of the key things that I have to state here categorically is that the media is a business. And if you look at the budget that has been put out to cover the census, it's 18.5 billion shillings. So ask yourself one question. How much of that is really going into sensitization? You know, most of it is going into gadgets, which may fail and stuff like that. People may not even understand how to use it.
Stuff down.
You know, I think we really have to realign our resources, think about what is relevant.
Yes.
Because I cannot expect a media house, which has got its own overall, expenditures. You know, it has to pay the journalists. They have to get out there to be able to really sensitize the community.
Is that to excuse yourself as proprietor of
No. I think in my view is that NTV is a business.
Right.
You know, and you make your money through selling your space. So I think we have to be very realistic in the sense that in the sense, let me finish.
Yeah.
In the sense that you've got a role to play in terms of educating the public. But if there is a budget associated to it, then that budget cannot only entirely be placed into paying some expensive gadget. They should probably spend some of that money going out there and sensitizing the people, letting the people know. I listened to the views which were being expressed by the people, and everybody was saying, media should do. How do you expect media to use all their money in sensitizing you, yet you have money that you've allocated and you cannot use?
Hold on, but then we have that public, duty.
We have that public duty to educate.
The public duty is there.
So
the public duty is there. Don't get me wrong.
Yes.
The public duty there is, don't get me wrong at all.
Yes.
But you see, we've got to be realistic. If you've got a budget, classify it, itemize it. Ask yourself, how much of this will go into these expensive gadgets which are being used? That's a conduit of people making money.
You've expressed your view on that, but that doesn't mean that they will postpone it because they probably didn't allocate the funds as you would have
Where I
wanted
want to agree with the senator is the fact that actually they should have even called some of the media stakeholders to even sensitize them, or even look for media partners.
Yeah.
Because it's so huge. As in, Mark, this thing is so huge that it is not just in Kenya where people are waiting to know what is happening, but also regionally.
Right.
Remember, even the numbers that you have are a determinant to something else that is regional.
Yes.
So if they would have even looked for media partners and said, guys, this is what we have, and this exercise has to go on, how do we help each other?
But they haven't, and we have 5 days to go. What do we do? And for instance, one person here following the story, Oyugi Eric, you say, I'm shaking my head, wondering, is it the work of the media to conduct a public participation in regards to census, or e-information iko kwa government portal?
Yes, and
how many can access that?
Exactly. I want to start from the point where I've seen an invite from the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics inviting the Kenya Editors Guild to a breakfast on Wednesday. That is barely 3 days to the exercise to sensitize them on the issue of census. And really, this is just too late in the day, because census is a one-off thing. We do it once in 10 years, and it's like we just woke up and realized that we need to do a census. So let's not assume that even as we call on media to provide the necessary information, they need also to access this information from the government portals, from the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics, so that they are able to disseminate. So sometimes we are really unfair to the media when we keep demanding for information, but we don't realize that they need to access this information first, interpret it, understand it, and put context before they are able to release it to the public.
What Dina is actually saying is that also media does not have the information. You've heard those questions. One of them is even asking, why are people coming to my house at night?
Right.
You know, why are people coming to my house at night? And it's a serious concern. There are people who are going to take advantage of that fact that people are coming at night, and they want to use it to get into your house and steal. You'll hear those stories. And we are here as media, and you will see. So when Dina says that a serious function like this, and the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics is calling editors 2 days to the function on Wednesday, then there's a problem.
Right. And so we've established there's a problem, but we have some duties here, and we will, purpose to deliver our best in terms of making ourselves aware about the process and letting Kenyans know what to expect. And even covering, she says, it doesn't stop at the night of August 24th or 25th, but we move forward into the process that will lead to the results, and that is 6 months into it. So, ladies and gentlemen, we'll have to stop this particular conversation on the census now and get into something else after this short break, which is the parliamentarians' furor against the journalists. We'll find out why they were so angry at us.
When the spirit of Kenya got going that magical day, it never looked back. And now, the same spirit is ready to take Kenya to the next level, led proudly by a new generation. Kenya King, Shangilia hustle ya Kenya. Nation FM. More music and less talk. Nairobi 96.3, Mombasa 101.5, Meru 93.9, Nyeri 104.9, Eldoret 102.7, and Nakuru on 97.7. Follow us on social media on Facebook at Nation FM, Instagram at Nation FM, and on Twitter at Nation FM KE. Nation FM. More music and less talk.
Discover the all-new Nivea Nourishing Cocoa Lotion, specially formulated with Nivea's Deep Moisture Serum and Africa's natural cocoa for 48-hour deep moisture. Glowing, radiant skin with nourishing cocoa lotion from Nivea. Get 48-hour deep moisture from the new range of Nivea body lotions.
Now you can get your Uber ride with a phone call. Call 0800 722 000 to ride.
It is always on the edge. It is always football time.
Get an HD decoder, dish kit, plus 2 months of DSTV Family for only 4,999 shillings.
And Mr. Speaker, we must tell the country how many members are there. Are they 5? Are they 10? Their names must be given. It's number one. Number two, Mr. Speaker, Parliament must make a formal complaint to the Media Council of Kenya.
Over 90 of our members of Parliament who accompanied the Speaker to the US, which is doing all round in the social media and other medias, showing us that we are only on the travel. And the House is full, you can see.
Parliament is under siege. Today, if you go anywhere in this country, you are not respected because of the campaign that the media is doing against Parliament.
Mr. Speaker, your recommendation and your decision we should sack all the people working in this media house because they have become rumor mongers and they are just doing gutter press everywhere against members of Parliament.
Well, let's get it straight and first get some responses here and whether you share the views of some of the parliamentarians.
I absolutely do not. I think we all have a duty to maintain a fiduciary responsibility, and I think the best thing we could have done is to explain properly to the people of Kenya what led to so many members of Parliament, both the National Assembly and the Senate, to be able to find themselves in this legislative summit. One of the most important things that Kenyans ought to know is that Parliament work in committees.
Yes.
And committees have budgets. Nothing is allocated to them. If one committee saw it necessary to spend all the budget to send their members, maybe 3 or 4 of the committee, because in the Senate, we have 9 members in a committee. In the National Assembly, they have about 19 plus in a committee. If they felt it necessary to spend all the entire budget to be able to send their members to Tennessee, to be able to participate to this National Legislative Summit, so be it, it's theirs. But instead of explaining it to the people, we went on the defensive. I don't agree with that.
Right. And we had the leader majority saying that we need at least a complaint filed by the Media Council. Anything that has reached your table about this particular issue?
Not yet, but I would encourage them to. It's not too late. They can still file a complaint.
No, but let me tell you something.
Right.
I think I want to fault the media a little bit on this
particular story.
On this particular story. Because I think sometimes we in the media, and I'll say we in the media because I'm also a media practitioner, we thrive in sensational. What is sensational is what sells. Kenyans ought to hear that the parliamentarians who are fighting for more money to go to the counties are the ones spending more money, and people out there have no jobs. That is sensational. The truth of the matter is that the person who reported this story ought to have carried out their due diligence to be able to clearly define and tell the story as it is. But don't dramatize, Maybe if they told the story as it was, Kenyans would not have really bought it, But they had to make it juicy. You know?
Okay. In this particular one, do you question the facts that are presented? But
Yes,
this
I
is
do.
actually a story by
Yes,
Lucas
I do.
Baraza.
Yes, I
from
do.
the Daily
Because
Nation.
if you look at in terms of the Senate, for instance, the number of senators who travel to the U.S. were very few. If you look at the National Assembly, the number of the members of the National Assembly who traveled were actually few. The people who were there in the majority and who we hope that we can build their capacity are the staff.
Okay.
You know,
and they
the
didn't
reason why
number,
we
they
built
didn't
the
number
capacity,
90 or 85 or
you know, but you know one thing, Mark, which people ought to understand is that we work in a system which I personally do not agree with, and I wish we could be able to change it, on a per diem, structure.
Yes.
Where a member of the National Assembly or a member of the Senate will not get the same per diem as a staff. So when they came up with those figures of 1.2 billion, within 9 months, those were all fictitious. You need to count how much money is being paid for per diem per member of the National Assembly or the member of the Senate going abroad. If they're there, the truth of the matter is that maybe it's $1,000 a night, a day for them to be able to pay for all their expenses in terms of that. And this is a member of the National Assembly or the member of the Parliament.
You claim an exaggeration on some of the figures.
There's a lot of exaggeration.
And you were talking about, before he cut you short, on the complaints. These are some of the things they should be able to bring to you as Media Council in terms of challenging this story.
Yeah, I think I'm going to say that the journalists are guided by the code of conduct for the practice of journalism in Kenya, and they have a responsibility to report fairly and accurately. And in the event that anyone feels that they have failed in meeting this threshold, then they should be able to confront it with facts. We should not rush into politicizing an issue because I think there is an opportunity for Parliament and the parliamentary leadership to come out and say the facts as they are, because the senators said media needs to use facts when they are reporting. So we have not yet seen anyone come out with the facts.
And they were to give a list, which they didn't.
Which they did not. Yes. But as the Media Council of Kenya, our interest is to see that conflicts, be it intra-media or complaints against the media, are addressed amicably. And that's why within the infrastructure of the council, we have the Media Complaints Commission. And nobody has come out to utilize this institution at an opportune time like this one.
And as they're challenging the facts here, they would be challenged to present the right version from their perspective. So perhaps that's one of the reasons they haven't even come to you.
And really, we let it not come out that the Complaints Commission is there to favor journalists. We can listen to complaints from members of the public, from news sources and subjects. And as a regulator, we are really an arbitrator and not interested in taking sides.
Kennedy Mureithi, I don't know what your reaction is from this, but first I'll ask, were you at all in any way, did you feel threatened from such a reaction from Parliament on this particular story?
I did not feel threatened at all.
You're asking Kennedy?
I've been told bigger things. But either way, listening to those sentiments coming from Parliament on that particular day, I felt like this is just Kenyans trying to vent their frustration. Because the sentiments that were coming from parliamentarians, actually the Budalangi member of Parliament, he said, we should sack. How do you sack?
How do you sack? You're not even
Seriously, you're not even the one who's employed these journalists.
Yes.
But also the majority leader was of the opinion that they are going to provide a list. Remember, to date, no list has been provided. Parliament has gone recess. No list has been provided. Most media houses did their due diligence. Senator, I'll correct you on that. And there was a list that was provided. This included members of the National Assembly, members of the Senate, members of the county assemblies, and also the staff that accompanied them. There were also other members of the National Assembly and Senate who had been invited earlier on and went there, and even some of them were even saying that we even used our money. So is there a list? Media has provided the list that was there from the organizers. Is Parliament giving us a list? That is one. Two, did people go for that concert? Yes.
Concert or conference?
the conference, the concert, you know, when you bring in Dolly Parton,
Dolly Parton,
it becomes a concert.
It was a conference
Then
in Tennessee, yes.
Nation has a complaints desk.
Yes.
This story was actually broken by Nation.
Yes.
Has any of them come to the complaints desk? And remember, Nation is very impartial in this matter. Nation itself even has, there's this editor that we have who even bashes some of the stories that we do. So
Yes.
have they come here to say that this is a list? Nation runs apologies. If the story was not factual, Nation would have gone ahead to say that this story is not factual, and we add that word, E-R-R-E-D.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Then number two, remember when they went for the World Cup, there was a report that was apparently plagiarized at the end of the day. I'm not going to say so much, but I'm really waiting for that report to know what did members of parliament learn in Tennessee.
But let me ask you a question, a very, very straight ask question. What would a list helps resolve? I've just made it very clear to you, Mark and Mureithi, that we work with committees. If the committee, and we don't get any money from anywhere else, we have got committees and we've got our budgets. We've got our foreign budget. No, wait, let me ask you a question. So what if a list is provided? I will make it very clear. In the Senate, we had part of the leadership, which I sit in the House of Business. I sit in the House Business Committee, and most of the leadership in the House Business Committee attended that meeting. Okay, they used the budget of that committee. What would the list have? Okay, so these men and women travel.
Let me finalize. Where I do agree with Ledama is probably I'm going to get bashed for this. Everybody has their own budget. If budget has been set aside for travel, then they will travel. But then again, is that not true?
Yeah.
And if there is budget that has been set aside for tea, they will drink tea.
No. You know, in the Senate, let me tell you.
He doesn't agree with that.
Let me
the
tell you.
point is true.
One of the
they work in
things
committees.
Yes.
As you said.
As you say, talk about the structures.
Let me
demystify. In light of the austerity, the need for austerity measures.
Let's talk about austerity measures, as you're putting it.
Yes.
The total budget allocated to Parliament, I think, is 1.4% of the national budget. Look at the budget policy statement and look at how much has been allocated to the Kenyan Parliament. So with that 1.4% budget,
30-something billion.
you know, okay, let's put it, divide it into every different committee. How much do you have for your local whatever business and for your foreign travels?
You talk about
Okay.
this being
No, wait.
When
No,
he's
no,
bringing
no.
in the
Let me-
issue
Yes.
of committees,
Yes.
he's actually trying to confuse.
No,
Kenya.
I'm not confusing you.
Let them give us a list. In this list, let them say Ledama Olekina went on the vote of the House Business Committee, and in his place where he is a member of the CPIC, that is the Committee on Accountability, somebody else went.
Let me break it down for you. Not a single member of the Public Accounts and Investment Committee traveled. I can tell you that as a fact. Number two, maybe there are a few members of the delegated committee that traveled in the Senate. I know members of my committee in the House Business traveled. They used that budget. Okay. Apart from, let us separate facts from fiction here.
All right.
Only in Parliament will the Commission of Revenue Allocation or even SRC tell you it costs X amount to maintain a member of Parliament for 5 years. You cannot say the same for an executive.
Well, to put it in simple terms, what you're saying in some form of defense is that there's money to be spent and there's budgeted for this kind of thing, and we're not at fault for using it. But if you use this common sense,
All I'm saying
when you
is
started your argument, if you use a common sense and you look at the numbers of those who represented Kenya, the biggest delegation, as compared to these others, for instance, from the US, who only represented by 6 delegates, Nigeria 20, Brazil 9, and Japan 6, still quoting this article by Lucas Baraza, you have to wonder. And you're talking about dramatizing. It doesn't make sense why 90 people would be there.
Let me be honest and try to be completely blunt on this. There are people who find excitement in traveling to the States. I've lived in the US for 20 years. There's nothing exciting about it. I can tell you that.
So there could be truth to the number.
To some extent,
yes.
Maybe each committee saw it necessary to take advantage of sending their members to the US, maybe they could learn something. That's number one. Like I said clearly, is that and I'll get into the issue of Dolly Parton. I said it clearly that each committee has its budget. If they felt necessary to spend the entire budget on that trip to the US, it's up to them. It's their own prerogative. They will not be allocated any more extra money for them to be able to go to any other trip. You know, this thing happened year in, year out. Committees travel. There's probably a committee traveling to Russia tomorrow. There's probably a committee
but for what purpose, and how will it help the Kenyans?
Reports. It's not even about reports, really. It's about trying to build their capacity in terms of understanding comparative politics.
Well, a Kenyan reading this story, and you call it very heavily dramatized, is that for the legislative conference, whose agenda included sampling country music and getting inspirational talks from songstress Dolly Parton, and people will ask, what the heck would you be going there to do? It's a legislative conference.
Let me ask you a very simple question.
Yes.
If a tourist is coming to Kenya, if anybody is coming to Kenya, as a senator of Narok County, where would I want them to go to? Masai Mara, right? Yeah. Tennessee is home of country music. As a matter of fact, if you go from one club to another, you'd find the same country music, the same guitar being played. It's cheap, okay? So, as an event organizer.
But are they going there as a tourist or representative?
Now, let me finish this. Yes. Just listen to me. Because you're a human being. And I'm not defending anything, but I'm just being completely realistic. If I go, I work from 9 to 5 or maybe from 9 to 10.
Right.
There's nothing evil about me going in and celebrating some kind of, Dolly Parton
Why not
music.
go on your own cost? No one challenges that.
Are you telling me, Mark, it's like telling me I go in a 5-star hotel, and just because my per diem can only allow me to consume a meal of $20, I cannot look at a menu that has a $200, meal. Listen, the event organizers saw it necessary to be able to showcase what they have to offer in Tennessee, so that if that legislator who is appearing to come to this legislative assembly, maybe tomorrow can decide, you know what, it's really damn cheap here. I can bring my family. And they make money. That is what we in Kenya ought to learn. So that when we bring in tourists, we don't lock them in KICC. We take advantage. Yes. We take them to Masai Mara. We take them to Mombasa.
Okay. Your response, Ken.
This is very simple. At least Senator has come out to try and explain what they did. Yes. And according to him, it is Tennessee that was trying to showcase what they have.
But that's a fact.
But why did their counterparts in the National Assembly go on an overboard to even threaten journalists? That is what we are looking at. Because there was no need of the Member of Parliament for Budalangi to go out as much as he did and say, we should sack these people. Or
because it
the
paints
other
them in
Member
bad
of Parliament
light.
to go out and say that everywhere you go, everybody is painting you in bad light. Yes. What was so hard in coming out and saying that this is what we did, these were the benefits and all that, instead of spending a whole session of Parliament discussing the Daily Nation and Nation in particular, trying to put out that this is what you guys said about us. He has explained and said there are people who are excited about going to the US. I have never been there. If Nation were to sponsor me today, I will gladly go. And I will sample those
the local talent. Yes, but someone will ask for these public figures, what are they bringing back home from this? But nonetheless, this is something that Dina has faced in terms of the furor. It's not the first time. And she did the household bribes with Anthony Mwangi while at People Daily. This was in 2008. And just from that experience, 2018, beg your pardon, in August 2018. And just from that experience, Dina, you can see clearly anything that paints the parliamentarians in bad light is going to welcome a lot of anger. Just take us back to that experience and then now contrast that to this particular issue.
Before I comment, I think it will be very interesting to see what kind of report comes from the US, the US tree, because on the basis of that we'll be able to judge who is telling the truth in this case. And going back to negative stories about Parliament, I want to throw a spanner in the works to say that I don't think journalists purpose to write negative stories. The work of journalists as a journalist as a watchdog is to write things and to publish things that people don't want published. And because there's also a saying that anything else is public relations. Then if you want to look at it from that point of view, then you will appreciate that negative stories, it's the news subjects that see stories as negative. But have you tried to find out what the common mwananchi thinks about such stories? Having said that, the Parliamentary Service Commission is one of the hugely funded institutions in this country. And there is a saying that to whom much is given, much is demanded. So parliamentary scrutiny by media is not going to stop any soon. And parliamentarians should really be ready. But I think from what we have seen, the threats and the bashing, I think it's because the parliamentarians have a platform. They have a house to vent, where they can vent their frustrations or their displeasure. And they are entitled to certain privileges. So are parliamentary journalists. So the question we could be asking now is, who is abusing their privilege here? Is it the parliamentarians or the parliamentary journalists?
And let me just play something real quick. It's on the same, Letama, and you could tell me whether, because you earlier said the media has been dramatizing this issue and sensationalism basically took over this particular story. Speaking at the Media Council Awards night on the 9th of August, you were there. The opposition leader Raila Odinga confirmed that Kenya sent a delegation, or at least the reports that they had a big delegation to the US conference, adding that it was a shame to send such a huge delegation at the taxpayers' cost. Let's listen in.
I also have my sources where the nation got it. That, as a matter of fact, it is not 85, it was 90. 90 Kenyans are there, when the United States, the host, has only got 9 people. The other day in Dubai, I was transiting and I meet a whole county assembly from one of our counties. I don't want to mention which one. That they are going to do benchmarking in Dubai. Dubai does not have a devolved system. Many countries now are tired of receiving Kenyan delegations. Even Kenyan embassies abroad will tell you they are tired. If they're not members of the National Assembly and Senate, they are MCAs running around that they're coming to do benchmarking. The Parliament owes this country an explanation why they have been sending bloated delegations to conferences which bring no benefit to our country.
So you did feel that the story has a lot of dramatization from the media. Is this dramatization by your party leader?
Let me put it this way. One of the things that I agree with my party leader is that I think at some point we have to be a little bit realistic. I don't necessarily support our per diem system. I wish there would be a legislation that would come place to demand that we parliamentarians, whenever we go out, we are reimbursed on our actual expenditures. But that has got to cut across the entire 3 arms of government. You know, because when you do comparative analysis, when you look at Australia as an example, which is a very, very good case, Australian parliamentarians, when you travel, you are paid for your ticket, your actual ticket payment, and your actual expenditures. I don't support the fact that when I travel, let's say to East Africa, I'm given maybe 60,000 shillings a night. I could probably choose to live in a River Road hotel and pay like 2,000 shillings, and I have 58,000 shillings to bring back home. Those are things that we have to be really realistic about. I agree with my colleague here when she talked about the fact that PSC is heavily funded. And I'm one of those people who probably will be unorthodox in terms of my thinking on a way PSC should carry out its duties. I think we have to be realistic on our actual expenditures. I agree with the Right Honorable Prime Minister when he says that sometimes we are excited. Why should we go to Dubai for benchmarking? We can go to Nakuru, we can go to any other county to see what they're doing and learning from them. So I don't support this overexcitement of traveling abroad. You know, I don't travel abroad. I can tell you that. If I travel abroad, I travel under my own. You know, and maybe once in a while, maybe with a committee, if I feel like there's something that I can be able to learn. But the truth of the matter is this. It is not only in Parliament, it is with the executive and also the judiciary.
Would you say that you owe an apology to the Kenyans based on this as the leader of your party?
I think I would be, what I would actually would like to say is this. Let us look at the entire per diem system in the 3 levels of government.
On this case, though, as this says, your party.
I think on this case, it would be wrong for me to say that I owe an apology. And I'll tell you why. Because every committee has its own budget. Okay? If they spend the entire foreign travel budget going to the US, they will never go anywhere else. Okay? And in most cases, the reality is this. Most of the local budget is never spent. Because people don't want to travel to Kakuma, to Turkana. They'd rather stay in Nairobi.
Okay, let's close this issue. Do you think we owe an apology based on this particular story that was put out there and that some, not some, but many have been against? That is stories like one by Lucas Baraza about this delegation.
I don't think we owe anybody an apology. What we are actually owed are facts.
Yes.
We need facts to know if our stories were not factual, what is the factual state? What is the truth? As Senator Ledama is saying, what is the truth? How many people were there? Of what benefit was it to all of us? But the most important thing that is actually even coming out is the fact that politicians are actually using the opportunities or such opportunities to threaten practitioners. And it is happening everywhere.
Please disregard that.
Yeah,
it's not substance.
And it's happening everywhere. Even some of our correspondents in different parts of the country are saying that once you do a story about someone, that particular someone actually singles you out and will make your life hell in the particular place that you come from. So these particular threats, the media center has been closed before because journalists did a certain story. There are other issues that are done once in a while, whereby they will realize that so much has been said about Parliament through a specific journalist, and they will want to try and lock you out. Right now, they have a system, they have media liaison officers who were picked from media houses, and they actually do understand their job very well with regards to relating between the media and the politicians. But the politicians, once they go into the chamber and one of them starts condemning a certain story and everybody else picks it up, remember they have the privilege. And for us, it's just a space that they've given to us. So these threats are there and they're very alive. But they also have to understand that we have to treat each other.
No, I think what I'd like to encourage Mureithi is that as a journalist myself, do your job diligently. Do your, carry out your research, so that whatever story you put out there, it is factual.
But it's funny how stories that actually paint politicians in bad light then criticized as not being researched well.
But no evidence is offered.
Yes, but to that issue, and it's very careful that Media Council has to say this and give a position. We can't disregard such.
Yeah, you can't just disregard threats. You can criticize, and I mean, journalists are not blameless, and once in a while we have errors emanating from reporting, incorrect reporting, imbalanced reporting. But the issue of threats by politicians is very serious because we have been seeing a trend whereby politicians threaten journalists, and they forget that they have influence over a huge number of the population and who do not necessarily appreciate the value of free speech. And you could easily trigger attacks against journalists in your backyards. And it's something that has happened at the Media Council of Kenya. We monitor
and you have cases.
And we have collected over 50 cases this year in county governments. An MP goes to a rally and say this Githeri media, fake news and all that. And the next thing you hear, a journalist has been attacked. Why? Because the supporters of these politicians do not appreciate that criticism is healthy. They see that as enmity against their leader. So I think it's good for politicians to seek solutions to the conflicts that arise amicably without necessarily issuing threats carelessly.
They should actually be happy. There is no negative publicity for a politician. They should actually be happy.
It's good publicity.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, they also must realize that I have a duty, not just the media house that I work for, but also to Kenyans. If I do not tell the story as it is, then I will be accused of something else, of having been pocketed by someone else. So I have to give this story as it is.
Wait. Let me ask you a question. Muriithi, let us be very honest with each other. Are you telling me that there are journalists out there who do not tell stories because they are being pocketed?
They are. They do.
A lot of. I want to be honest with you.
Yes.
And I want to be very, very blunt. Okay? And I stand corrected if I'm wrong. But I've seen a habit of certain journalists here waiting to be given money. Every time I go into a rally, mdosi unatuachaje bana? Situpatie. You know, I mean, that isn't cool.
And we're not refuting that. And
but
that
if
is
they're
why
asking you, perhaps they know they'll get it. Then you've been giving it.
I agree with you.
You've been giving it.
But you see, one thing I can say is that I respect this gentleman so much. I've known him.
Yes.
And he's covered so many stories. Never has he ever told me, Mwesh, niaje? Never. But I've been asked that by so many. And in fact, some of them I've told them I don't give ordinary money. I'm a journalist myself.
Yeah.
So I don't. I'm sorry.
But that's why,
You know?
that's where Dina comes in.
Yes.
And we are saying that the trade has been infiltrated so much by people who
are not journalists.
Their duty is to see what they go home with at the end of the day.
True.
And that's their sole duty. They
Dina,
do not
you're doing
actually
something
care
about it.
Yeah, and today you saw there was top officials from the Media Council of Kenya were in Parliament today to have a discussion with the clerk of the National Assembly. And it's a process that has been going on, and we've been facing, receiving a lot of complaints about what Senator is talking about. People even posing as journalists, because I'm sure 50 or even 70% of such people are not even journalists. And one of the reasons why that happens is because most people posing as journalists just come and they make fake press cards, or they
Are you talking about in
duplicate.
Parliament? Because I thought they have a very strong verification process within Parliament.
That's a debate we can have another day, but I want to restrict myself to our mandate, and and what we are trying to do is to introduce a new card that is can be scanned electronically, so that when you come to Parliament, it's not your access to Parliament. It's not under the discretion of an individual, but you come with a document which you can scan on a scanner, and you are able to come in. So then if you have a corrupted card, then you will not get past the gate. Right. So those are some of the reforms that we are bringing, and we are working with key installations, including judiciary and Parliament, and eventually county government, so that we are able to distinguish journalists from non-journalists.
But if you have complaints of actual journalists who are
it's so serious that even when you go to assignments, the person who's even invited you to this assignment will ask for your media council badge or the organization from which you come from.
So.
Then they will look at it, authenticate it, then they will allow you into the assignment. I've been to an assignment where when people were introducing themselves, somebody said, I work for an online publication called Maneno Mingi. I was like, okay. You know, it's that serious.
You have also not been telling us that, because you also have an obligation to protect your profession. So you should report such cases to the Media Council of Kenya.
He just did. Yes, he just did that. We close that matter, but there's one more that we need to get into, and I can't hear my director right now, but hopefully we'll be able to just touch on it just a bit after this short break. Stay with us.
Why aren't you wearing the ring?
2 is company.
I don't know what I'm supposed to feel about this.
Star Times. Enjoy digital life. Nation FM. More music, less talk. Nation FM.
Nation FM. More music, less talk.
By the power vested in me, I now pronounce you husband and wife. Our world felt like a storybook. We were unstoppable. Eternity was ours. She never wavered from the vow she made to me on our wedding day. I wish I could say the same. I need you to sign the divorce papers.
The greatest gift a father can give his children is to love their mother.
As the days turned into weeks, I could feel myself changing inside, not just emotionally, but physically, spiritually, and even mentally as well.
Oh, wewe ndio uliosha hii gari?
Yes, umeona venye iling'ara.
Kazi yako ni nini hapa kwa hii estate?
Security.
Exactly. Ustick kwa line yako.
I want chicken.
Having rice today.
Let me call my dad and tell him to bring me chicken.
Aloy, zima hiyo kitu. Trying to put my child to sleep.
Sikuski.
Dad, you buy me a hoverboard.
Yeah, we'll see about that.
I know my real dad can buy for me one.
Kisiwa Technical Training is an ISO-certified institution offering quality technical and entrepreneurship training relevant to the changing industrial and market demands. Apply now. Knowledge and skills for better life.
It's only a will says. Umesikia?
Unaongelesha nani hivyo wewe?
Can you stop talking to my nieces like that?
That guy has to go.
When was the last time you went to church?
Sasa unauliza tu ya pizza para uliza kazi ndatoa wapi ingine?
Kwani ulinileta hapa ni kwa slave wako? Ukinileta hapa unaniambia unakuja kunisaidia?
Mimi sitaki house girl, nataka houseboy kama Nyambekea.
Kuna wale ambao wako in the gospel industry just for the fame and the money.
Wako wengi. Hata naweza wataja. Wa kwanza ni
Super Loaf, slices of life.
It is always on the edge. It is always football time.
Get an HD decoder, dish kit, plus 2 months of DSTV family for only 4,999 shillings.
Ule mtu wa kitendawili ametangaza ya kwamba anataka kushindana na mimi kule 2022. Mimi nataka niseme hivi. Haya mambo nimeyasikia. Kama alikuwa anasema inifikie, mimi nataka nimweleze nimesikia.
As Deputy President William Ruto responding to what were reports in the Sunday Nation that Raila Odinga has given hints at his intentions for the 2022 bid. And that has been opposed by Raila and his team. In fact, they sent in this particular letter from his legal team, a demand notice, in fact, and it's it's titled "Malicious, False, and Inflammatory Publication" on the headlines. Article featured on the Sunday Nation newspaper, dated the 18th of August 2019. Our client, Honorable Raila Odinga, makes some requests here, and this including retraction of this particular report. And this report here contained in yesterday's paper is what we have. Raila hints at 2022 bid, says Peace Pact was a change of strategy. This report being by Dickens Wesonga and Derek Luvega. They were given 24 hours actually to change this particular message. But this is where it gets a bit tricky, because now with this particular demand notice from the legal team of Raila, and we're not going to discuss pros and cons of this particular case, but on the issue of succession politics, first of all, I'll start with you, because you clearly have, Mr. Ledama, more intentions for the future, but you can correct us if you're wrong. You could tell us about your 2022 plans already, but this keeps coming up. dominating headlines. 2022, 2022, this, 2022, that.
Mark.
What's your position?
Mark, the media is the one which is building this narrative of 2022 succession politics. I think what we have to focus on, and this is what Raila does, let us focus on building this country. Let us focus on development. We have got 1 million youth plus who are jobless, who have degrees. We should be focused on building a narrative on how to create jobs for them. I don't give a hoot in hell about 2022. I don't know whether we will have, maybe next year, God willing, I know for sure, we will go for a referendum. Maybe we might collapse the county governments and make maybe 3 county governments into 1. We might have maybe a legislative assembly, you know. So if for us to really talk about who is going to be president in 2022, it's premature. And what Raila said is very, very clear. Raila has told us, I've sat in meetings with Raila up to even 3 a.m. in the morning. And Raila has said, we focus on development. Let us unite this country. I don't want to hear any of you talking about 2022. Who knows whether there'll be county governments or other regional governments. So I stand corrected, but I'm certain that Raila never insinuated that he's going to be running against William Ruto.
In 2022?
In 2022. Never.
Dina, in your experience, this happens a lot. And, you know, he says the media is putting us in that perpetual state of electioneering. But we were talking earlier and you mentioned something. This is futuristic kind of journalism. In your response, what would you say to explain this?
There's nothing wrong about futuristic journalism, so long as it's not based on mere speculation by the reporter without then making reference to facts or even approaching the parties in the story to get their clear position. So, and I think the first one of the stories that we had in the recent times, it's about the reshuffle of the cabinet, which fell flat on its face. But having said that, I think there's also nothing wrong with reporting on 2022, so long as you're basing your reporting on development. Because it's upon, for example, if someone has declared interest in 2022, look at his or her current record. What are the issues that they are addressing vis-a-vis what they are promising? Okay.
You were responding as Ledam was talking about media is to blame for, you know, this whole electioneering mode that we are in. But you ask, is it why?
I don't think the media is to blame. You know why? Number one, and I'm going to be a bit blunt, the narrative that is sold every weekend, politicians are out, and this one is propagated mostly by the deputy president. The narrative is the same. He will say, Jubilee, tumeweka stima, tumeweka maji, tumeweka 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things. And it's the same narrative since 2013. You cannot report that every day. Then he will throw in a spanner about something that is topical. You go, and I want to challenge anybody right now, go to YouTube. I'm a big follower of social trends. And I watch the number of views that a political story will be able to garner vis-a-vis a human interest story.
Yes.
Or a story where someone in Kakamega or Busia or Meru or somewhere has been able to kill someone because of ugali. The political story will sell more. What are we looking for as a media house? We're looking to sell. It is the politicians themselves who know once they speak politics, they will be covered. And what happens? That is the punchline they will give. Every Sunday, a clique of politicians that work with the deputy president have made it their business to either talk about a bill that is being brought in parliament with regards to capping donations or talking about his 2022 bid. So they know that is what is going to sell. And yet, they do know that sometimes once they talk about other issues, they might not see the light of day because these are issues that we've had time and time again. Even these promises that have been made, even Ledama will be able to bear me witness, is that some of the promises that have been made to date have not come to fruition. So even us as media, we will look at it and say, okay, sawa sawa, is this what people want to watch? then that is what we will give them.
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily, you say?
Yeah,
is this
because
based on what you've
as
monitored?
media, you also have a responsibility to set the agenda.
We've set the agenda with the river.
Toxic flow.
Yeah, the toxic flow. And everybody has been scampering to talk about it. We're not saying that that is not important. It is important. Yes. But then again, once the politicians and those people who are in charge know that they are in the wrong, they're the first people to come and divert attention. Look at how they were scampering today, and I saw people from NEMA and all these other bodies come together in trying to give a press conference. Yes. But these are issues that we should have dealt with a very long time ago. If systems were working, then it will be interesting. And media has a role, and that is where I'll come and agree with you. We have a role to set the pace. Yes. But we've set the pace. But sometimes the bait is not taken. You revert to what is there. Right. And that is the politics.
Well, why'd you laugh, Ledama? First of all, you actually agreed when we were starting on a different topic that we are in business. And this was on census.
I agree.
And I mean,
I agree in business.
Raila, Ruto,
no, listen, I agree in business. But the thing is, when you see the country is almost coming into conflict, it behooves you, and the people who sets up the agenda, to be able to change the story and focus on development. One of my biggest pet peeves is that we're talking about devolution in this country, yet the national government is clawing back on devolution. If you look at the amount of money, I keep saying this over and over and over, and I'll keep repeating it. If you look at the amount of money being allocated to the Ministry of Health, yet health is devolved, is equivalent to 9 counties' shareable revenue allocation. So really, I think right now, if Mark, you want to be serious about building the legacy of this nation as a country that is progressive, it is about time that you change the narrative. Don't give those guys, sycophants, an opportunity. You know, don't give them airtime. Okay, and soon. No, I'm not talking about the deputy president.
Nobody asked the deputy president to respond to the Sunday Nation
let me put it this
headline.
Yes.
But he chose in his wisdom to respond to it, and it became news.
Wait, I think you can give him a blackout.
Why?
You know, you can give him a blackout because it is not healthy for this nation.
And this would also serve for Raila?
No.
Yes, blackout? Absolutely. Absolutely. There's no double standards.
Ledama.
I think in this case, let me put it this way very clearly. I want to hear you, the media houses, telling Kenyans and how they can create wealth. Okay? How can we create wealth? How can we create jobs, opportunities for our Kenyans? If, Mark, today I come in here with a fantastic story and I tell you, in Narok County we have 20,000 cows. Let us be scientific and figure out how much fodder do we need for that. If we can do that, we can build. Those are success stories. As a journalist, you can carry out investigative reporting. You don't have to dance in the tune of sycophanting. No, you don't.
All right.
You know, there was a story today told about my colleague, Cheryl Gay, when he was threatening, saying that he's going to profile people in terms of the people who are against the deputy president. That is hooliganism, to be honest with you. You should not propagate that at all. You know, if I, Ledamo Lekena, goes out...
But have the role of airing it if it's hooliganism, so that he's reported.
Let me tell you, even the media council will tell you, only air what is healthy. You know, this is a country that has got a history of conflict. This is a country that starts with different massacres. Go to 2017, election violence. Why should you continue propagating hatred? You know,
it's not hatred. Why do you place me now as a political journalist?
No. As a political journalist,
to run out of business.
As a political journalist, I don't want you to run out of stories or business to be able to tell. But there's a lot of stories that you can be able to tell. In fact, Mureithi, I consider you to be one of the most reasonable journalists who can be able to go out there and do serious investigative reporting in terms of legislations which are being aired out. I'll give you a good example. There's a bill that I sponsored, which was to rationalize on the benefits given to deputy president and other designated state officers. That bill was focusing on making sure that not a single person comes out and gives themselves power to be able to take out the benefit that have been given to a citizen who was out of this country. But the media said, no. Olekina wants to give them billions upon their retirement. That is nonsense. You know, let us focus on the content. You know, let us tell Kenyans the truth. Yesterday, I heard on another local media station that I was raising money to be able to support the fencing of Mao Forest. Yet what I said, and in fact the bite that they put there, is that I have committed my own resources and those of my friends. So you see, where is the connection between the two? So let us commit to the truth, ethics of journalism, the code of conduct that the Media Council is preaching.
Yes.
You know, let us do that. And the moment we do that, you know, Kenyans will be happy that we're telling them the truth. The truth, even the Bible says the truth shall always set you free. You don't have to sensationalize something for me to be able to believe it.
So black them out.
You know,
Raila
let me tell you, black them out.
Ruto.
I don't care who he is.
TV will be very boring with
Why will it be boring?
stories.
So you want to make it entertainment by telling lies?
But entertainment is one of the tenets of journalism.
He did allude to the fact that if you track the numbers at least of what people view and what people want to see, is it necessarily true that that's what they want? That's what Kenyans want? If indeed the views on a particular video would show that there's interest to politics. They have followers, millions of them.
First of all, I want to say that I will leave this show very happy because I have won a convert in the name of Senator Lendama. Now advocate you for the code of conduct.
Yes.
And I want to point out a few issues on the issue of ethics, because as much as we want to get clicks on our social media handles as media houses and journalists, we have to weigh, one of the principles of journalism is to weigh the kind of, the benefits of a story against the harm it's likely to cause. And there is also a legal aspect to it. You want to broadcast a good bite, as my friend Muredi has put it, that it's a good bite that people want to listen to, but without thinking then what is the legal consequence, because you are going to be taken to court for hate speech, for offering a platform for a hate monger to propagate their trade. So we need to resist the temptation of having good bites, dramatizing issues at the expense of ethics and indeed the dignity that we want a journalist to be viewed with.
Okay, because we're out of time, but Kennedy Mureithi, moving forward, can people expect a change of narrative, or as a political senior reporter, this is something that you will be keen on? I mean, not psychophancy, but if it's said by a particular politician, it's said and it needs to be reported. What's your commitment moving forward?
I don't need to give a commitment. My company, Nation Media Group, the one that I work for, has serious checks and balances with regards to any story that goes on air. And not just anything will go on air. That one I want to, that one I thank even my editors and the company itself. Emmanuel Juma, Joseph Warungu, Watson Karuma, and Sheila Sinde will not agree to such a bite. And there is this thing that is catching up in most media houses, that a journalist, before they put out a bite from a politician or from a news source, they have to transcribe it, to write it word for word.
So
what did this news source? So that the editor is able to make a judgment with regards to whether this is something that we want our viewers to watch or to listen to. So do I need to give an assurance? No, I don't need to. Our media houses have already done that.
You'll keep doing your job.
Yes, we'll keep doing our job, but to make sure that we have that responsibility.
Okay.
Remember, Senator Ledamo Lekina, what he's not telling you, when he's in Parliament, he's too serious and he thinks on his mind. But when he goes out to the people of Narok, he has to hold the party position, whether he likes it or he doesn't.
No.
And he has to propagate it and take it as gospel truth. At the end of the day, that is what, and he will even say a bite that he knows will be picked up by media houses. Yesterday, in our 1 o'clock bulletin, we had like 2 stories that had Ledamo Lekina, because he spoke something that people wanted to hear. He's been propagating things about the El Chamus. Do you know what he said yesterday? I listened to that bite. We want a constitutional change so that you, the Ilchamus, have a constituency of your own.
And I stand by
that
that.
music was too sweet to the ears of the Ilchamus.
And I stand by that.
You know,
yes.
It's too sweet to the ears of the Ilchamus.
And he definitely won't want a blackout on that particular.
Yeah, he wouldn't want.
Mark,
he wouldn't want
listen, Mark.
a blackout on that.
You know what?
So at the end of the day, as a political journalist, I have to look at these things, because if there is no political news, then you'll run me out of business.
And we
I
want
can't
you to
do
keep
health
doing
stories, man.
Well, probably you can if you just try it. You never know. But Ledama, a quick response as we wind up, and then I'll wind up with Dina.
I'll put it this way. First of all, to respond on that, I strongly believe that there is no taxation without representation. There's no basis of us taxing the Masai's Ilchamos if they are not represented in this country. You know? So I think if they have 2 MCAs, and they are small minority being swallowed by a big ethnic group, they have been subjected to really, years of untold sufferings, you know, from the Pokot on this side, from the Tugen on this side. Come on.
Okay.
Cut them some slack, give them representation. That's number one.
Right.
Number two, you know, on this issue of Mureithi, I support Mureithi in doing his job, but let's have a balance. You know, let us be factual. One of the key, most important that I stand with is the truth. You know, I disagree with my party leader respectfully. You know, I want to be on record by saying that for a very long time I did not support my party leader on regional government. But over time, when I saw the way county governments were over-relying on the national allocation, on the shareable revenue, then I saw the sense in terms of collapsing these counties. You know, and I'll be a happy camper if Narok, Kajiado, and Taita Taveta are collapsing to one county, have one governor in that county, you know, have an MLA or members of the Legislative Assembly, have MCAs as just people who come in on a quarterly basis, not necessarily in terms of improve the level of education that is needed to be able to run these counties so that we can be able to increase. So really, when sense prevailed, and you know, when you look at our party leaders, if you listen to Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta, by the virtue of him being president, he's got some common sense. You know, I don't agree with him. I apply the parity principle. I agree with him to 80%, and I disagree with him in 20%. That's the same thing I do with my party leader, Raila Amolo Odinga. You know, where I don't agree with him, I'll be blunt enough and I'll tell him, Your Excellency, I do not agree with you in this.
All right, you've made your case. Dina Ondari, from the Media Council perspective and as well as a journalist, a career journalist, your final comments.
I'll end it at the point where I want to call upon journalists, or rather inspire them and encourage them, that there is a future in writing factual stories. It's good to be faithful to the code of conduct, because a good story will stand on its feet.
Yes.
Whether someone feels uncomfortable about it, so long as it's based on facts. And let us also embrace verification at every stage of the story. And having said that, I think the media has done a very good job in bringing out issues. And if you see the kind of conversations that we're having between politicians and journalists and members of the public, it's a healthy way of knowing that really media is doing their work. Yes. And to the politicians and news subjects and sources who feel like the media has rubbed them the wrong way, there is always an amicable way of resolving these conflicts. It doesn't have to be confrontational. And as we move towards the politics of 2022, we realize that the temperatures are going to get hotter, but we call upon sobriety. Let the media do their work. Let them verify, let them find a balance in their stories, and let the news sources and subjects also follow the law through the laid down procedures in conflict resolution.
All right, thank you very much for your thoughts. And yes, 5 days to go to the census. Hopefully we'll be able to apply some of the perspectives we've shared here, as well as we continue into the politics of 2022 and whether or not to give it as much prominence as we've been giving it. And we'll see what will happen to that particular story in response to the demand notice to the Nation Media Group from Raila Odinga's legal team. And thank you so much to Kennedy Mureithi. Thank you to Dina Ondari from the Media Council, and thank you to Senator Ledama Olekina for your time and also for your time. But as we've been talking about some instances of journalists being locked out of Parliament, there's an instance of journalists being locked out of White House. And this is on our international radar as we finalize. Trump administration has fired another shot in its war with the U.S. press, suspending the credentials of Brian Karem, White House correspondent for Playboy and an analyst for CNN. The 30-day revocation was announced on Friday, a move that echoes hugely controversial action taken against Jim Acosta, another CNN journalist, in November 2018. Acosta, a frequent irritation to Trump, had his hard pass, which is like a press card, was passed through to White House, which gives reporters access to White House press briefings, taken away after the administration claimed he used inappropriate force in resisting an intern's attempts to take a microphone from him during a news conference given by the president. Now, he had his pass suspended after an altercation with former Trump aide Sebastian Gorka in the White House Rose Garden in July around a social media summit convened by Trump and attended by some of his most ardent supporters. Both men attracted criticism for their behavior. In a letter to White House Press Secretary Stephanie Grisham, Karem's attorney Ted Botros, who also represented Acosta, described the decision as arbitrary and unfair and claimed the White House had not spoken to a single witness seen on video taunting and or threatening Karem. Now, in a statement on Saturday, White House Correspondents Association President Jonathan Karl said the group was deeply concerned as such a move could have a chilling effect on working journalists. Well, thank God that there wasn't a lasting chilling effect on the threats that came through to Kennedy Moraithi. If you remember, his name betrayed him, as well as another instance where he was cussed out on air. It didn't quite happen to anyone else. But yes, thank you very much again to my panel, and thank you for the time that you've given us on Press Pass tonight. My name is Mark Masai. Have a good night.